What is your mood, Gertrude? I do not hear you warble of our betrothal, which has been applauded by every Dane who wishes to see our race enriched by the merger of valor and beauty.
Whose is whose? There is no fault I can lay on you, sir. You are the model warrior by all accounts.
Am I?
Of course. The slayer of poor Cole, with all due courtesies. Then the dispatcher of the unfortunate female Sella. You are a renowned raider, leading your rabble to the happy slaughter of fisherfolk and monks, unarmed but for their prayers. I find, as I say, no fault in your brave person, but in your approach, uninspired and coldly expedient. But perhaps I am still callow, and not yet ripe for marriage.
Both your wit and beauty have ripened. How many years will go by before both dwindle? You are no girl. Your frame is stately and ready to serve nature. Nor am I fit to wait longer. It's time I showed the world an heir in proof of God's favor. But you are like this cage in which a full-feathered wifeliness beats to escape. Gertrude, our alliance is desired on all sides, but nowhere more than in my heart.
If I could but feel that, and hear your heart make its vows. But you come to me conveniently, out of political will more than personal desire. You must understand, I have no counsel to draw comfort from. My mother died when I was 1. I still feel her absence cruelly. Perhaps it is indifferent nature I protest against.
How can we not protest? Sent from the abode of angels to live on this earth among beasts and sentenced to death in a misery of foreknowing. Can we bear it without love? My father loved my mother. She cried on the morning he left for battle. And before all the clan, he said to her, "Wife, if I do die, and you walk near my grave, from the very depths of the earth I will hear your footsteps." But love must be fed. These birds feed only on the seeds of finest flax and hemp. Any seeds coarser, they fall sick. And should one die, the other trails with heart broken.
Do you think they would feel this same bond were they not caged together?
The cage need not confine. It can protect from a hungry world. This is learned in time. So can love be.
And if all we learn is indifference?
Time will challenge us to learn more. You will learn to be a queen, and I a king. We can learn, but not alone, only together. I am an honest man, hard to those that defy me, but tender to those that profess fealty. Gertrude, accept all of me. I am yours. Claudius, I often wonder, brother, why you do not marry.
I marry?
Bear with me and ration your smiles. You've been vital these decades, traversing a continent of possible brides, but have shunned your clear duty to our family and Denmark. Even now, the daughter of the King of Scotland is sound, intelligent, and appetizingly young. A strong link between our courts would put the English in a tidy nutcracker.
I would be happy to see the English in a nutcracker, but not one that my wife would be the handle of to be seized as you demanded. I wish no wife. I'm beyond such wishing. I'm an old soldier, accustomed to the friendly stench of men.
You wish no wife? How can that be? Are you unnatural?
As natural as you, brother. Even more so since I have not made myself the king by capturing an unwilling girl.
Has Gertrude told you she was unwilling?
No. I surmised at the time, but avoided witnessing your triumph, as brutal as your rape to Sella before you slew her.
Sella was a scourge upon our coast. Perhaps you do not wish a wife because you already have a wife of sorts. Another man's. Don't speak. Imagine this fable with me. A good and faithful king has a wandering brother who comes to his castle at last, weary of fruitless adventuring, and in his embittered idleness seduces the queen, with the aid of the king's treacherous, senile Lord Chamberlain. The adulterous couple sates their unspeakable lust month after month in a secret shelter the pandering Lord Chamberlain has provided in his enmity to the king, whom he knows to be planning to relieve him of his lucrative post. I ask you, as my loving brother, what should this so grievously abused king, the guardian of the Lord's commandments and protector of his own extended household, do?
The king should first torture his sources for so bizarre and unlikely a tale.
The pious Herta confesses not just her own sins, but those of others. She brings them to the priors in the monastery that lays between here and the hunting lodge of Polonius. Fortunately, the holy men are more loyal to their king than their God, and confessed the same to me. My own instincts, which I know you and Gertrude think are hopelessly dulled, told me something was amiss, or rather, something had been added. She was, will it wound you to hear, more ardent rather than less. I benefited by that heartily, without it first scenting the source. There was something, it would be too rude to say rotten, but overripe about her. Claudius, you give me no counsel.
I cannot be accused and judge both. Beware, however, that thrones can topple in convulsions they instigate.
You dare read me my instructions? You who won through your vile lust, stalking foreign brothels the will of my seemingly virtuous queen? You were always my inferior, Claudius, a filthy, skulking shadow, less strong, less fair, the lesser favored of our father. You touch your blade. Will you have at me? We are alone. I have no need for any blades of my own. Come, brother, here is my breast. You were always foul at heart. Your envy drove you to brooding, to unnatural fancy, in which you sought to embroil others of the weaker, more suggestible sex. You idolized women and therefore sought to degrade them. Why have you hated me? We shared the same parents, the same upbringing. You could have basked at my side with almost equal honor, rather than infest the remote corners of Christendom with your perverse longings and expatriate's pride. How many more years will Hamlet be away from us studying at Wittenberg? How much is there to learn? He's 29, I'm almost 60. It's high time Hamlet came home and studied kingship.
I think he finds us unsubtle.
We unsubtle?
We drink too much. We eat crudely with hunting knives. We are barbarians compared with his professors.
Unsubtle. What does he think life is? A theatrical performance to be minced through by boys in women's clothes?
He doesn't talk to me about what he thinks, or indeed about anything. But I understand from what Polonius has let drop, there's a new way of looking at the world, scientifically, whatever that means, instead of taking everything on faith in the priests and the Bible.
You confirm my worst suspicions. My son is learning how to doubt, learning mockery and blasphemy, but I'm trying to instill piety into scheming merchant Danes.
What else did Polonius say? Something about man being the measure of things, which makes a kind of sense, since men and women are here, while God, who is somewhere, is harder to observe. Still, you can't help wondering if people are ready to be the measure of things. We can hardly measure ourselves.
We must get Hamlet back. There are days I feel fatigue when I wake to when I sleep.
Normal aging, darling. I need to nap in the orchard more than formerly. You'll live another 20 years at least. You jutes are tough as nails. Look at your brother. He suffered 5 wounds in a Turkish ambush, and still he moves like a panther.
That was a decade ago. By now the rogue could be a blind, one-legged cripple. I doubt even that would matter. Claudius could lose limb after limb, even his head, and he'd still keep talking.
You are angry because he stopped writing. You're angry because he doesn't write to you.
I take delight in it. Hamlet never stops writing. We have his letters, but no son. Instead of Being here and cutting his successor's stalwart figure, he wastes his days in logic chopping and his nights in whorish follies.
I do not think our son has as much taste for those crass pleasures that you indict him for so enviously. I have in mind, as I have mentioned, Ophelia. She is 17, and during his infrequent visits, the prince has paid increasing notice. She has become a beauty with a sweet impish wit, though still shy as a maiden should be.
Ophelia lacks all her wits, impish or otherwise. Her brain holds a crack any ill circumstance might jar agape. Further, a prince should wed a princess and enlarge the throne's influence. To marry the daughter of one's Lord Chamberlain is unhealthy political incest. Polonius has so long flattered our ears with his counsels, I've been considering his dismissal, to be phrased as a well-rewarded retirement to his little lodge, to whose improvements he has devoted so many trickles from the royal purse.
Polonius advises my father. He is a living link to my girlhood.
Exactly. He has grown too accustomed to basking in the king's power. Long proximity to the throne breeds envy and presumption. His scheme of making his frail daughter the next queen would deprive me of all possibilities of an advantageous alliance. Hamlet's attachments are not sentimental affairs, but matters for deliberation in the most dispassionate councils. Never trust an advisor with a marriageable daughter.
This is not a scheme of Polonius or mine. It is a natural trend that we have both noticed, without our encouraging it. Hamlet's fondness for this flower budded in his own court. On her side, how could we be fascinated by our loyal adolescent so preeminently eligible and yet not spoken for? But she is docile, and we will leave all hopes if her father so directs.
Let him so direct, then. She may be your age of espousal, but you were no pallid invalid, shrinking into your father's shadow at a frown.
When it mattered, I was, as you well remember, having benefited by my surrender. Ophelia has more mettle than you have ever deigned to credit. She will breed stout progeny, my instinct tells me.
No, your instinct serves your desires, my dear. You read your old self into her. Gertrude, do not seek in this brittle maid the means to your own late fulfillment, and the conquest of your own son. Tools twist in our hands when we misapply them and wound us.
I am merely offering thoughts on the matter that my lord himself raised. How to interest Prince Hamlet in the court and his own royal destiny. I am sorry my motives appear so twisted, when to me they feel straightforward and kindly meant.
Kind advice comes constantly to a king, and he learns to see it all in terms of the bearer's own benefit.
Am I a bearer? I recall the day we met. You wanted a wife and an equal, not a cringing supplicant.
I still do. A wife who does not consider her husband an afterthought to any other affections.
Your suspicion has whittled your heart to the size of the knob of a scepter. It's no wonder your only child refuses to come home.
It's not me who he avoids. It is the general climate.
Are you so unfit for the battlefield, you content yourself with wounding your wife?
Gertrude, you always feel my injurings, but never feel my affections. Are you blind to me? Or do you wish me blind to you? Every new day brings the prospect of a new and stronger marriage.
A stronger marriage or stronger love?
With all time past, they should be the same.
Are they to you?
I have tried and tried to make them so.
Mistaking duty for passion?
Gertrude, after Hamlet left us, I thought part of you left with him. You were distant and indifferent. Some days I thought that the ocean separating us from our son was smaller than the distance between us. I took comfort in believing unsettled seas would soon settle. Hamlet, then, was not so long away. I would be patient. It took more time for me to realize the error was not my calendar, but myself. Your discontent began not with parting with your son, but with my brother. Gertrude, say nothing. What is past help, but not today's. This moment is already gone, then gone again. Each a beginning. I am a patient man, but not a despairing one. Each day brings me hope for us. Any moment can kindle it.
You are a good and constant man. Such goodness is rare and should be treasured. I have not treasured you. I look into myself for something of worth, instead of looking into the worthiness before me. True apologies are never spoken, only shown. Husband, can your patience at this late time still be rewarded?
Even now I am